Hey, Peter, thanks for using Racers 360. We're excited to be working with you here. For kind of a new track for you, you're driving really well at VIR. We're going to highlight, I'm going to highlight the quickest lap. And the reason why I did that is because you actually executed turn one really, really well this lap. For sure, there's a little bit of work we could do at turn three, up through the S's, a little bit of the back section of the track, but there's going to be little things here and there because your foundations are great, your lines are mostly great. So there's no super low-hanging fruit, but added together, there's definitely some nice little nuggets that we can work on here. So let's go ahead and turn the volume down, go full speed into turn one here, start breaking some things down. So this lap, what I want to talk about is what I really liked about turn one. Nice brake zone out over here. The big thing for me is you have a slightly too early of a turning point here. I'd like to see it come about a car length or so later, but the main area that I look for is, okay, where are we getting down to the apex point, where we start to pick up the throttle. So I like that we are apexing really the start of the green and yellow curbs right over here. That's the perfect place to come in and apex. The only thing is that early turning point just means the second half of this corner is a little bit tighter because you're in slightly early. So I'd like to see you come in and turn in like car length or so later, and that's going to allow you to apex at the same point with a slightly different car angle. I'm going to exaggerate that a little bit here, but you'll be looking a little bit more this direction, or right now you're a little bit straighter on, which means that second part of the corner is more tight. So let's have that a little bit later of a turning point and get our right front tire right into this area here, apex round. I don't like to use the green and yellow curve. I really kind of like just kiss this gray curve, maybe get up a little bit on it if you've got a lot of understeer. So that's going to allow you to just be a little bit sooner to throttle. It sounds, let me turn the volume back up, and I'm going to try to pause it where I hear your throttle start to come in. So it sounds like we're only really picking up the throttle here. There's a few areas where I think we're slightly too late to initial throttle. I'd like to really see you start feeding in that initial throttle back in this section here. So it's about 2 car lengths earlier. So I think if we have a little bit less entry speed, that little bit later of a turning point, still execute on where we're apexing, and that little bit less entry speed will help you pick up that throttle here and then hopefully get back to full throttle in this section right about here. After this, you can use a little bit more road out to your left-hand side here, but not much more road. I don't want to be all the way out to the edge of the road, but a half car width or so wider will just allow you to have slightly less steering input in the car, which means slightly less load in the car, which means you can have more acceleration going forward here. And you might struggle less with lateral acceleration oversteer on the exit. So big points for me are slightly delayed turning point, apex at the same point, pick up that initial throttle slightly earlier, and hopefully get back to full throttle earlier as well. Focus a little bit more on the exit. So into turn 3 here, this is probably the one area where I think we can work on the line actually the most. At this point right now, we're perfect. But I want you to start opening your hands and getting out to the outside of the track here earlier on to allow us to actually have an earlier turn-in point for turn 3. So ideally by now, I'm actually parallel or close to it on the outside. And at this point, I'm actually starting to feed in steering input, start getting towards the apex as you're coming further and further out. What ends up happening is you have a much later, more aggressive turn-in point here, which means you're having to overslow the car. So actually what I want the line to look like is actually a pretty early apex point. You'll be kind of coming in, and really using that apex curve right about there. So I've come in wider, earlier, but most importantly, slower with my hands, allows the weight transfer to happen slower, allows me to open up the radius of the corner, bring more speed in there, and then I can get away with that because I'm going to get out to the exit curve earlier as well. So you can see right here where you're turning more and more aggressively is where I'm starting to open my hand. So actually I want to try to use this apex curve. That's where I want my initial throttle application to come. And then what ends up happening is I'm going to get out to this exit curve a lot earlier. It's hard to see here, but you can actually see a lot of rubber being laid down on that exit curb in this area right here, that's where I want my right side tires to be. So you can see the trajectory of the car where you're very flat here. I'm still using more and more and more road because of turning earlier, and I can get away with that because I'm going to get out to the exit curb and use all that track earlier. So you can see I'm all the way out, all the way out, all the way out. And now as I'm starting to actually come back in, so I've been going straighter for a longer period of time, is where you're only getting out to the exit curb. So that late turning causes you to overslow, and then you're not using all of the road until it's really too late. So let's start to open those hands. I'm going to back this up a little bit. So as we're approaching here, good, 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 good. Open those hands at this point. Get out there. Keep turning in here. Get down to that apex curve. Throttle, throttle, throttle. Use the track, use the track, use the track. Start bringing it back in. Start bringing it back in. So just a small little nuance change there. Turn 4, I think we look really strong. I like to use all of this apex curve here, get up on it because it helps rotate the car a little bit for me. So that means I can bring a little bit more speed, and I can use that rotation to help me keep it further left on exit. That's kind of a little bit more of a driver preference difference in cars. So what I would say is I'd like to see you use that. And try to get up on this curve, trail brake, and end up where you are now. See if you can bring a little bit more entry speed and still get away with that. If you can't, keep doing what you're doing because I think you actually look really, really solid through this whole section here. Nice job in there. Small note, I don't like using this apex curve. There's a lot of camber right in here, so I like avoiding it. But again, that's something that is a little bit more of a try it, see if it works for you. If you prefer that curve, no harm, no foul, but there's a good bit of camber in here that I think you lose a little bit of the advantage of it when you're running up on this curve. So just give that a try and see if you prefer that or not. In this section here, throttle, 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 lift, great turning point, back to throttle, good job using the curb, really solid through there. And that's a tough section of the track that you look fantastic through. Alrighty, so into the S's. Everything in the S's starts with the turning point down here. We are starting to turn in the car just far too early. I want to see you go straight, and really start turning in only at this section here. And you can see your turning point really starts to be fed in back over here. You're starting to ever so slightly wheel it in. And I want to see you, and that means you're just a little bit not all the way to the edge of the track here by the turning point. And this is where I want, bam, a nice turning point here, so that we can get parallel with the backside of the curve. Hold it so you end up there, but hold it slightly left, slightly longer, about a half car length or so longer before coming back to the right. So then you can use this curve with your hands straight. I think you do a pretty good job there. As you start to roll more speed and get more confident, these small little things are going to become more and more important. So really being all the way to the edge of the track on the first curve, bam, nice turning point at the end of that access road, being parallel to the back end of the first curve, slightly past it, bam, one good turning point back over here. Hands straight using this curve, that's excellent. That's probably the most important part right there when you start rolling more speed. Where I think we are struggling the most, I want to see you hold it left longer here so that you can set up a better radius for the right-hander. We don't need to be perfectly to the left side of the track, but you can see I'd like to be probably third of a car width wider than you, but more importantly, I'm going to be looking straighter at this point where you're kind of just driving it straight in at this point. And it's only for a split second here, but a split second at 110 miles an hour adds up to a good bit. So what ends up happening is that split second allows me at this point to where you're looking very much this way, and now you're going to have to turn harder as we come up the hill here because you're so far in. I'm going to be a little bit wider before, and then coming into this apex with a little bit more of a line that looks like this. So at higher speeds, I'm able to keep it a little bit farther right as we crest over the top of the hill here. So big thing is the split second, hold it left a little bit longer, straighter hands for a tiny bit longer, then hook back to the right. I'm probably apexing here where you're apexing back in really this section. So half car length to a car length later apex. After that point, pretty solid job through here. Very happy with that. Turn 10, I think you look solid through. Back to throttle here. You're using the road on exit. Really nice job. Oak Tree as well is like perfect. Lighten up on the brakes, lighten up on the brakes. You get out using all the road. Good turning point. Back to throttle about here. Using that road on exit. You know, for me, a small note, I know we have a little bit of traffic car in front of us here, but I want to use every inch of the road out here, every little bit. Get those eyes up there. I'm trying to ask myself really from, oops, let me get the right tool going here. Really from, I'm looking for the apex, looking for the apex. At this point here, I'm looking for that exit curve, and I'm trying to say, how early can I start to unwind the steering wheel and get to significant throttle? Because the earlier you can start to unwind that steering wheel, the more the earlier you can get to significant throttle. So start opening those hands, let it be free. You're still leaving you're really only getting out all the way out there, just slightly too late. Let the car drift out there slightly earlier, and that's just going to allow you to get back to that full throttle point just tiny bit earlier as well. So mostly good run through there though. Into 14, sorry, well, 14 is the right-hander. Up the hill here, the next hill, I want to see a tiny bit later of a turning point as well. It's going to set us up to roll more speed over the top of the hill. So you can see here, we're kind of starting to turn in back into this 1.5 board. I want to see you start trying to go past the 1 board and then turning in slightly later. What that's going to do is as you look to roll more and more speed, right now, to keep it left, you have to slightly overslow because you have to have an angle that looks something like this. You have a little bit more of a turn, where if you could turn slightly later, you're going to get that turning done earlier, and you're going to have a car angle that's going to look something more like this. Now, I've exaggerated that a little bit, but you can see you'll have straighter hands over the crest of the hill and a way to keep you further left. With higher speed, that's going to start making more mattering more, because if you want to roll the same amount of speed, you won't be able to keep it left heel. You get understeer, and that's going to push you further right. So have a slightly later turning point, maybe about the half, just past the 1 board. Play with it a little bit. It kind of is a little bit car dependent. Sometimes I'm turning as late as that arrow, but that's in a pretty arrow heavy car as well. So delay that. You want to keep it farther left here. So this is great, but that's going to allow you to roll more speed while still keeping it to the left here. At this point, I think we look solid. For me, we over-sacrifice a little bit here for that next left-hander down the hill. I'd like to see you let the car be slightly more free out of here to work through this next left-hander. So let it drift out a half car length, a half car width or so, and that's, from what I've seen and I've experienced, even if that causes me to have a tiny bit of a lift in here, just a quick check, I still gain more by driving it in faster here and roll, and that's going to allow me to roll more speed through here as well, even with that slightly check. So you might be able to be faster than me from here to here, but I'm going to be faster really from this point all the way through here, all the way through here, until this point. So it's about a little bit longer time than I'll be faster for. And you might be able to get away with using more road and still being flat through this section, or just that tiny lift. So just try to get back to initial throttle, maybe roll a little bit more speed, get back to initial throttle more aggressively. I'm not saying use all of the road back in here, but let it be free, let it be free, let it be free. Maybe just a tiny bit more to the left there. And maybe your right side tires are in the middle of the car now, so half car width, bam, still get a good run through here. Importantly, the most important thing in this section here is you have a great turning point. I want to use absolutely all of this curve. It is really important to get that left side tire up on it, because that's going to allow you to keep it further left. It's going to allow you to open the radius of the next right-hander, which is going to allow you to bring good speed in, but allow you to get back to initial throttle and full throttle earlier, which is going to pay off all the way down that front straightaway here. So as we go farther forward, coming in, get right where you are right now. I just want to be a half car, not even a half car width, but have my left side tire, front tire up all over this. That's going to allow you to bring more speed into this section, end up a little bit further left with straighter hands. Then you'll be able to turn right And most importantly, I want to start feeding in initial throttle here and be back to full throttle right here in the compression. We are just ever so slightly too late to initial throttle and back to full throttle. I'm going to pause it where I hear you get back to full throttle. So we're not even back to throttle yet. Oops, let me back it up a tiny bit. It's kind of hard when I pause it. So we're only starting to feed in the throttle here, which is just too late. I really want to see that initial throttle, not before the curve, but just as you go past that apex curve, I'm starting to feed it in. And as the car compresses, that's where I want to get back to full throttle. And that's what's going to give me this run all the way onto this front straightaway, all the way to turn one, and it adds up to significant time like that. So thanks again for using Racers 360. I hope this all makes sense. Please let me know if you have any questions at all. We're always here for you, and hope this coaching adds value to you and helps you find time.